welcome to the Two Becoming One podcast. We generally take the time after each of our marriage nights that we do here at Redemption Tempe, which we do about 6 times a year, to get together with whoever was speaking at the marriage night. And we haven't done this for a couple marriage nights in a row. So the last couple marriage nights, we focused on missional marriages. So in October, Brad and Carrie Vaughn talked to us about how to practically shape and live out a missional marriage. And then a couple weeks ago, Janet and I focused more on like how marriage itself is a reflection of God's mission. So today we have Janet, my wife, and Brad and Carrie Vaughn in the podcast booth. So if you've been around Redemption Tempe at all in the last 5 or 6 years, you probably know the Vaughns. Carrie does local and global outreach and is the adult discipleship director at Redemption Tempe. Her and Brad have 5 kids. And I thought that maybe we could just kind of go around a little bit and take a few minutes, just introduce ourselves and share our stories for a little bit. So whoever wants to start. Brad, why don't you start?
Okay.
There we go.
Let's see. You already mentioned me. I teach at one of the Great Heart schools. I teach humane letters, which is like history and literature and philosophy all together. I am though married to Carrie for 27 and a half years, and we have 5 kids ranging from 17 to 24.
Yep.
Wow. So how's that?
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I guess I would add to that is that we spent about 15 years of our lives living and serving in China. So we ended up moving back to the States in August of 2019, and we moved to Arizona, like sight unseen, really. I had never been to Arizona until we moved here.
Never?
No, never.
Wow.
No, we actually, when we were offered a job, said, do we have to move to Phoenix?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, we literally said that.
Did you have a particular connotation with Phoenix?
Hot.
Or it was just too hot?
I'd flown through one time, and I felt the heat in the summer. I said, why would I ever want to live here?
But Phoenix has
It is
grown
hot
on
here.
us since then.
Yeah.
So we've been here then since 2019 and been at Redemption the whole time.
And we met you guys in 2019, right?
Right.
It was
and we actually
Stalked you.
kind of friend stalked you. I don't know if we've ever told you guys this story. But at the
I did not know
time
that.
in 2019, we didn't have as many families that had older kids.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
we had seen that you guys had older kids.
Yeah.
And from across the sanctuary, I remember leaning over to Brad and going, we need to become friends with them.
This is totally a true story.
It is a true story.
Wow.
So I think it was after that service, we just basically got in your
Stood
way.
near you and-
oh,
Yeah.
hi, oh, it's good to meet
You're
you.
like, hey, you're the other family at Redemption
the
Tempe
other
with
family.
grown-up kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is not that way now.
Yes.
But it was in 2019.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
Amazing
that was how
how
that started.
quick, I mean, that's
Yeah.
6-7 years ago. Uh-oh.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Nope,
jeez.
this is
I
not
just
on
said
video,
that
so
out loud. Yeah. I'm moving my hands up and down, 6-up, you know.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how
Yeah.
what COVID did to us. It changed our concept of time. That feels like
Totally.
a whole lifetime ago. And the fact that you have a 24-year-old, a 17-year-old just feels like, wow.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's wild.
all right.
Okay, we started in college ministry separately and then got married
Yeah.
and moved up to, that was at University of Arizona. And then we moved up here and we've done more like marriage and family ministry over the last few years. We have 4 kids. Our oldest, Abby, just got married last May. She's 22. And then we have a 20-year-old, 18, and 15-year-old. And I've homeschooled for about the last 20 solid years. And this last year and a half has been my first time not homeschooling.
Wow.
So I'm in a whole new phase of life lately.
That's why we got you on the hook for more podcasts.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, you don't have time to do stuff like this.
Yeah, and I don't have any good excuse to get out of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll just get into it. We're going to kind of start with a simple concept today, which we mentioned this at the last marriage night, which is to use something properly, you must first know what it's for. So our overall goal is to embrace God's purpose for our marriages and so that they reflect his creational purpose and fulfill his mission. So I'm going to throw out a question to get us started and anybody can answer. First question would be, What is God's creational design and purpose for marriage? How would you guys answer that question?
Well, I mean, I think stemming from at least the Ephesians 5 is one place, is that's meant to be a manifestation of the gospel in relationships, Christ and the church. So I think at a minimum. So basically, it's the smallest and most fundamental community, because it's the nucleus of a family.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I think to add to that, it's a reflection of the unity of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. We get a picture of that unity, and we get to practice that in marriage.
Yeah. How do you guys think a marriage embodying an understanding of God's covenant with His people? How much of an effect does that have on people's lives when they understand how God's covenant is reflected in marriage?
Well, this is where I'll put on my nerd hat. Some people may not know I have a PhD in theology, and so when I think of covenant, I think about the fact that many of the most important covenants in the ancient Near East, there was basically a self-maledictory oath that basically said, if I break this covenant, I die. And that the only thing that separates us is death. And so you'll see an animal will be cut and maybe somebody walks through the middle and whatever else. And I think that's the idea, is going back to the two sides of humanity in Genesis 1. And so that if you were to split them, the human would die. And I think that's the idea of what the bond is supposed to be, that you function as in synchronous as your left and your right legs do. And if somehow you separate them, you would just be fundamentally not livable in any kind of same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think in keeping with what Brad was just saying is there's not a lot of commitments we make in modern society that feel serious. Like we can undo commitments pretty easily, whether it's subscriptions or if you buy a house, in theory, you could sell it the next day.
Yeah.
And so there's just not a ton of commitments that feel heavy in a good sense. And I think when I think back early on into marriage, especially, it was like, oh yeah, this is a covenant thing.
Yeah.
This was not a decision that we made on December 19th in 1998 alone, right? That there is a depth to it when you link it to this is a covenant.
Yeah.
And so I think understanding that as a Christian adds like an appropriate seriousness to the commitment.
Yeah.
And if your spouses haven't remembered that's a covenant, that's maybe not a good sign for you.
Yeah.
But I say that kind of in jest. But actually, the only time you're going to need to really remember, oh, this is a covenant, is the fact that is those times where like this is hard. Yeah. And I would love to run. And so it's precisely the hard that makes the covenant part so necessary to know, because when everything's going good, you don't think about the fact that this is a lifelong covenant that it would rip us and our whole family apart if we broke it,
And I love that you brought up the deeper meaning of it, because we live in such a contractual society where we sign contracts and we break contracts whenever they don't serve our purposes. I think we have to be really aware of that in this day and age, more than even 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. There's a common phrase when I've done a number of weddings here at Redemption Tempe, and there's a common phrase you hear. You get done with the wedding, you walk back into a room or some other area or whatever, and you have a couple witnesses. I'm usually there if I officiate the wedding, and then the bride and groom. And you sign the state documents, and everybody always says the same thing. Can you imagine what they say?
Like, oh, now it's official.
Now it's official.
Yeah.
That always just burns me inside, because I think, like, I'm not saying a contract isn't valuable. I'm not saying identifying to the state that you're in this covenant and that they hold you accountable to it is, but it's not official because you signed a document with the state. That's just changing your status on your taxes. It's official because God declared it official, and you committed in front of God and his people, and we agreed with you. That's why it's official, So that kind of stuff. I'm going to nerd a little bit too, because we talked a little bit about this, at the marriage night. But if you look in Genesis 1 and 2, when you go all the way back to, I think there's a lot of ways to look at the world. We can look at it, especially worldview driven, theologically, practically, economically, socially, philosophically. There's a lot of ways, and all are good. But if you go back and look at the world creationally, you see when you read Genesis 1 and 2 that marriage is the core institution that God created to govern his creation. And it's very specific to the fact that he chose a man and a woman together to govern his creation. That's his original institution. And then we see Paul highlights in Ephesians 5 that he reveals this mystery. Paul is writing that God is revealing this mystery that since creation, marriage is a primary reflection of the gospel. The church itself is a marriage, and with Christ as the bridegroom and the church as the bride, but it also reflects in that in the church are in this context, the Jew and the Gentile, that these are opposing things, like a man and a woman are different from each other, not opposing, but different. And they are coming together and being united as one in Christ. So, Paul says, for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This mystery is profound, but I'm speaking with reference to Christ and the church. It references this in Revelation, and obviously they're kicking it back from Genesis. Jesus talks about it. It's quoted in Mark 19:5, Mark 10:8. He said, have you not read that he who created them made them male and female, and for this reason a man will leave his father and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So Jesus is affirming this original creational design and purpose, that it's reflecting something that is being revealed in the whole world. So from the beginning of creation, marriage has played a role in reflecting this overarching story, and specifically pointing to the good news of Jesus. And that relationship is integral to the mission that God is doing in the world. All right. Let's get to the next question. It kind of reflects a little bit of what we just said there. Actually, I do want to ask one more question before we move on there. Did you guys have anybody growing up or in your life before you were married that you looked at and said, that marriage reflects something that I want?
Mine's easy. Absolutely not.
Absolutely. No.
Zero.
Okay.
And so you can go ahead.
It's amazing how many people actually answer that way.
I had more because my family went to church. So there were couples around. My parents would be a good example of that, and just other adults that were in the church. I did have a perspective of what that could look like. Even if I wasn't like consciously kind of clocking it, I could see examples of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Were you going to say something?
I was going to go ahead.
Okay. Growing up, I would say I wanted the opposite of what I saw growing up, and I would do anything I could to get that. And then I think that kind of helped drive me to find God, because I wanted something different. But then people in my church, there were some couples that I looked at where I thought, oh, this is something I would want something like. And even like getting to know their teenagers, that helped me wrestle through how they raised their kids and how they brought them up, which was very different than the way I was brought up. But I thought, I really like how their kids have turned out.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for those people in our life.
Yeah, I had my parents' marriage, I would say, felt like a little bit of a roller coaster, where it was really good sometimes and there was good stuff to point to, and then there were times where it was like, oh man, is this going to make it? It just feels like we're going through a tough season. And eventually my parents got divorced, but I had a couple around that time where they were split up for the last time. The McKnights was their names, and they were like the first family I was around where I went, what is this? Like, this is way different than anything I had ever felt before. And it was amazing how attracted I was to that. So, all right. So, we use the term missional marriage. So this can be, this can sound like a buzzword way of saying it, but if we're talking about a missional marriage, what is a missional marriage, would you guys say?
Well, I would contrast it, on the way to that, I think we'd contrast it with what we even see in the culture where it says that basically marriage is about trying to secure personal happiness, finding adventure, emotional support. But we would say, it's about face to face. And we would say that a missional marriage fundamentally is a marriage that where you're shoulder to shoulder, where it's not just about what you get out of each other, but what others get out of your life together. That's fundamentally what it means to be on mission. And I think to tie back that picture of Genesis that you talk about, keep in mind the first couple was given this mandate to go into the world. There is a Hebrew word picture that's going on that gets translated out of the English every time. Like the word rib is not actually what the word means. It never means that in all of Hebrew literature.
Really?
It means side. It's an architectural term that's on the side of temples and buildings, whatever else. And it literally paints a picture, the word picture that's there. No one else can see it, but it's, if you imagine a sketch of a person, the word picture in the Hebrew is with one image and it's cut right down the middle. So you're literally side by side working in unity for the sake of this greater purpose.
Interesting.
It is not a face-to-face, we exist so that each other's life can be better.
Yeah, and I would probably add on to that I think it's easier to talk about being missional as an individual. And then I think this is maybe one of the places that we allow some of the culture to seep into our perspective of marriage, is because, like Brad was saying, there's so much focus on like the face to face. And that's not a sinful disposition. But if it's only that, then the shoulder to shoulder piece just doesn't usually end up happening in an intentional way. And so, like I said, if we as individuals are called to be missional, if we're called to live a life that is blessed to be a blessing, then our marriage should be that as well. Like nothing changes simply because now you are married.
Yeah.
And so, but I will say, and we'll get into this, I think, in a little bit, it does require some more thought.
Yeah.
Because now you are two people moving in a direction. Well, if you've been married for more than 3 minutes, sometimes you don't want to go in the same direction. So it requires some more intentionality, I think. And so it's easy to put that to the side because sometimes it's hard and it's work.
Yeah.
To put it another way, like, we are not married. I am not married for her sake, and she is not married to me for my sake. But most Christian books say marriage is about making us better people, but that stops short. Better people for what? It's to make the world a better place. It's a calling. So if we cannot be a better blessing in the world because we're together, then why are we married?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think just to add on to that is like what we kind of did is just come up with what is our agreed upon mission, vision, values. And that obviously took time as we were married. And then we just poured every decision that we make through that lens. So, and that is the thing, you make so many decisions about how you spend your time and your finances. And if you have kids, there's so many decisions with that, but it's keep evaluating and reevaluating. Does this line up with our mission, with our vision, or is this taking too much time away from it, or too much resources, or too much energy, and then reevaluating. And that's been something we've just kind of reworked year after year.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Brad, I think you brought it up, like the cultural expectations or the cultural ideology of marriage tells you, I think we live in a time where it's like, I and my algorithm is looking for this compatible spouse that will fulfill all my desires and meet all of my needs, and then you get into it and you go, well, God's expectations for marriage are much different. And we almost view marriage like we're the ones creating it.
Mm-hmm.
Like somehow we step into it and we go, oh, I'm going to make this marriage. When really we're stepping into an institution that was created already, and we just embody the roles that reflect what the institution was created for, the role it was created for, to reflect something bigger than ourselves, which makes the side-by-side analogy pretty fascinating. And I don't want to go too deep into this, but I've never heard what you said. That's very, very fascinating. But if it is split down the middle side by side, it kind of sounds like the covenant earlier where you were saying it splits something down the middle and God walks in between. That's a fascinating, I know that when you guys were talking, and maybe this has nothing to do with it, but you guys talked about the two different postures of marriage. Talk about, do you remember what you said about that? Or, maybe if I'm pulling something up that you guys don't remember, maybe that's what you were saying is these cultural postures versus, different expectations that you can take.
Yeah, and I think what it does is it redirects your goals, it redirects your time. Like, for example, hospitality and service become the fuel of your marriage as opposed to merely date night and romance and communication. Again, those are awesome. For sure. But for most people, that's the end-all measure of whether or not they have a missional marriage is that we're happy and we're not divorced. Yes. That people don't mind being around us. That's kind of the low measure, as opposed to, well, why are we doing this? Like, should we spend our money on ourselves, or should I have an even expectation this person satisfies me? Because if you have a missional marriage, you're like, well, we're not actually existing for each other primarily. We're existing so that together we can achieve these goals, which means that, guess what? We're not going to make everybody happy. For sure. Make each other happy all the time. That's just how it is.
And we all know if you pursue happiness, it eludes you. If you pursue something else, happiness finds you, because happiness is the byproduct of some other pursuit. It can't be pursued in and of itself. We've tried in our culture for long enough. We're not happier than we used to be.
Yeah, so I wouldn't measure the success in marriage as whether or not we're just happy, but what our impact is.
Yes.
And the truth is, it's not one or the other. Yeah. The problem, what ends up happening is one or the other only when we settle for happiness. But when we're making impact, you will be happy together, because you won't make an impact if you're hating each other. You know what I mean?
So true.
It is the wrong type of impact.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. You're still making impact.
Right.
But that goes on to affect how you raise kids and everything else. Yeah. So a lot of our thinking about missional marriage comes from our time in China, spending there 15 years. And so one way to think of it is you may think in marriage, like, okay, what's best for us and our security and our comfort and our kids, whatever else. But for us, like, we went to China because we said we wanted to do something risky, a closed country. We wanted to train the underground church. We wanted to do something that was worth getting kicked out for. And we wanted to spend our lives well, but our marriage well. And so maybe in suburban terms, or that's like, do something worth missing that promotion for. Or do something worth downsizing to one income for. That's when you start thinking in missional terms as opposed to conventional terms.
Very well said. All right. So, moving into that, like, how do we actually do that? How do we live on a mission together? Start talking about what that looks like and how we do that.
Yeah, I think Brad touched on a little bit, like the hospitality piece, I think is one. There's a lot of different areas, right? Janet, you mentioned finances and time and all of these decisions that you make. But if we focus just on that one hospitality piece for a second, is that there is an understanding, I think, once you get married, that like, this is our time and our space. And anyone or anything that gets in the way of that is an interruption. And I think if we are saying we are choosing to be intentional about being missional, then we have to let go of some of that. So hospitality, for example, could mean that you're inviting a single person over for dinner when you're tired, you got home from work, and you do kind of just want to shut your door and shut the shutters. And because the way, especially before you have kids, if you're setting that up as an expectation that we're going to invite people into our home, and that will then be the way that you will integrate your kids into that.
Yeah.
And so it's just thinking through, like, where are the areas in our lives that we need to extend ourselves, and it will be weird sometimes. I think that's one advantage we had in being in China for so long. We came back to the States and we were full-blown adults. I mean, I was 45, 44 or something when we moved back. And so we had many discussions in those early days of, like, we can kind of choose to do life in America how we want to do it. And so we tell people that come over all the time, like, hey, come help me cook. Yeah, can you help wash the dishes? Those are very non-American, typical American things to ask your guests to do.
Because we're a community.
But we tell people, like, yeah, we're a community. And sometimes they come over and we have a sandwich. And that's okay. And so we get to choose to do things a little bit differently. And it's actually a choice we all have, right? We all can choose to do it that way. We just need to remember that we have permission as believers to be weird sometimes, right? Because that's going to send us into places and be with people that maybe the world is telling us, I don't know that that's a good way to do it. But I just don't want us to feel like we have to subscribe to that as believers. We can do it differently, you know?
Yeah. For sure.
I think when you have that side-by-side perspective, you think about when you walk into a group, when a group is all closed in, you don't feel like you can walk in. But when they have kind of an open posture, you feel like, oh, I can walk in and join the conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's the same posture as a couple, to where you're always outward looking, but I think people tend to think the other way. If I'm not staring in their eyes, we're doing back to back and doing our own thing. No, there's this middle ground here where we're holding hands for a common purpose, and that means we, for a common purpose, don't do this, or we do this, or we see each other as teammates, and not independent people doing our own sports, and not as people who aren't playing the game because they're too busy staring in each other's eyes, but as teammates. And that's one of the things that we're always saying: we're a team, we're a team, we're a team, which means that you have to have a common vision, purpose, but also respect. Like, hey, you're better at rebounding, I'm better at passing the ball, or whatever the thing is. And then you respect them. And so you don't try to dominate the other person to overrun, because you go, what? I genuinely respect them. And they have a bigger vision in mind than making me happy. And ultimately, I want that joy rather than them just making me happy right now.
Talk a little bit about, like, how you guys made decisions as a team to, like, I mean, you talked about it, you know, if you're married longer than 3 minutes, you realize we want to go different directions. So how'd you learn, or how could you help, especially younger couples? I mean, not that, you know, we're going to learn something all here right now, but especially younger couples that are, like, making decisions about their lives of how do we live as a, like, side by side as a team. Talk about how you guys did that, or how you would encourage people to do it.
Yeah, I think this requires communication around this specific topic. So, for example, I love a little bit of chaos and spontaneity. Brad does not. We quite often say in our marriage, like, I make sure we're having fun and Brad keeps us out of jail. So that's kind of how things work in our marriage.
All right.
But knowing that is that I can want to invite someone to stay at our house for 3 days. And there will be times that Brad will go, that's great. I'm so glad you did that. Let's now make sure this weekend we have nothing planned.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to go, yeah, you're right. And that is going to, like, restore some order to our home in a way that is important for him.
Yeah.
And then there's times where he goes, this is just kind of a crazy season. So he knows he's going to need to be more flexible. And then the pendulum swings, right? And I need to be aware of, I can't just have people over 7 nights a week.
Yeah.
That is then going to be teeter into being unkind to my husband, because I know that would be exhausting to him. But that requires not getting offended either. Like him going to me and going, hey, we've had stuff every night for 12 nights. we need to stop. And instead of me going, well, why are you like this?
Yeah.
Why are you saying no? You're so unloving.
Yeah.
And that's what I did early on in our marriage.
Yeah.
Why do you not love people? But then realizing I was actually choosing this other person over him is what I was doing. So I was actually the one being unloving to the person that I married. And so I think it requires some real specificity of communication about this. What is too much? What is not enough? What is sacrificial? And what is like, no, we actually need to just be us tonight.
Now, here's a real key that I found helpful and other people have found helpful. We have no idea what balance means in the States because we think of it wrong. No one can see me, but we tend to think of balance as if I'm balancing a pen and hopefully it stays up. But we know it's going to fall, right? And we never can get that pen to balance. No, think of, like you said, a pendulum. That means sometimes you're over here, sometimes you're over there. In the long term, where's your average?
Interesting.
Right in the middle. So guess what? You are not always in balance. But maybe next month you'll be in balance. Maybe in 3 months you'll be in balance. Maybe in a few days you'll be in balance. But you're constantly going between extremes, but you never go too crazy. That way you can actually be in the middle. And that goes with quote unquote who gets their way. That comes with who gets priority in certain decisions based on, hey, and I have more respect for her in this area, so I need to yield or whatever it may be, time. But when people hear some of the things we say, they tend to go, oh, well, that means we just need to cut everything out or go the other way. We need to focus only on going outwards. Like either of those is wrong, and it's that pendulum. Keep going the extremes. That's okay as long as your long-term average is in the middle.
That is really great.
That is really great.
That's 2 times now, Brad. You've said something where I'm like, oh wow, I've never really thought of it like that before.
The key is, I think, for us has always been let's be intentional, because the only thing that happens by accidents are accidents, right? And mission rarely happens by accident. So that means building margin in your week for space, so that you have space for people to be able to come over randomly, right? Cook a little extra so that if somebody does come over, you have that little meal, So, missional living isn't like just this program. It's just a whole posture about how you orient your day. And so it's not something you just plan into your schedule necessarily, though there are parts of it, but it's a disposition that you're always looking, always leaning into it, always ready for it.
Awesome. Okay, so let me ask it in a much bigger sense. So you guys have been through this. You have couples that are saying, hey, do we want to make a decision to move to another city, another country? It's time to buy a new house. We need to take a different job. Do we need to, leave our parents' church we grew up in to go to a new church together? Like decisions that are going to start shaping the bigger form of your life. So you guys have done all these. You've decided to move to another country. You've decided to move back from that country. You moved to a brand new city. You had jobs, but you've had to find different and new jobs since you've been back. You've watched 4 of your kids leave the house. Like these are enormous things. Like if you're thinking about those kind of decisions, like, hey, I hear this all the time. We really think we want to move to Denver and we want to start a new life and, and all that. Like, how do you make a decision like that? Because once you make that decision, I had this conversation yesterday with a couple. They're getting married. They are thinking about moving to another state, but then they said the one thing, well, all of our community is here. How do we make that choice? So like talk about major decisions. Like how do you decide those things, or how have you?
I'll speak to the present, and then I like you because I tend to be a talker. I have given up a career as we speak because I've done theological education in the university level, and I have decided that I will not pursue those jobs elsewhere when I've been offered, hey, you want to come teach this seminary or that college, because we have found the healthiest church we've ever been part of. We have an incredible community. My wife is absurdly flourishing in ministry. I am now Carrie's husband, where most of our marriage, she's been Brad's wife.
Yeah.
And I love it. She's flourishing so much. Our kids are flourishing. And so holistically, we can have more fruitful ministry, even though it's not my quote unquote career. And so we're living that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think people don't understand that there's always a pretty big cost.
Yeah.
Like when we were moving to China, we were so excited. And we cried for weeks because we were leaving everything.
Yeah.
And so I think people underestimate the cost. They only see the excitement of Denver.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to have 4 seasons. And
Yeah.
we're going to be in the snow. And they see that, and that's exciting. My honest recommendation would be people extremely undervalue community. It is not easy
Yeah.
to make community, especially the older that you get, because people are busy. You're at work all day. So, when you're in college, I think it's easier because you're with same age, same stage. But if you have good community, no matter where you're at in the world, you're at home.
Yeah.
And I just would white knuckle community and let that be a stronger force for staying than the excitement of moving. I often say, because I get antsy, I want change. So for people that are sometimes people just want change.
Yeah.
I'm like, go take a spontaneous trip to Seattle.
For sure.
Get online right now and buy tickets for Saturday. And let that be like the adventure thing. And let that scratch the itch. And come up with smaller, less life-altering things that can be new and exciting and an adventure.
And to tie the community with marriage, if your spouse is your only community, you will not have a missional marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mission is outward directed, community directed, world directed. But if you think that the other person is the only community you need, you're insular.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I have one more question here, or one more main question at least. You guys have already addressed some. I mean, actually, Carrie, you just talked about this, but like, what are some of the main challenges that you face, and how do you navigate them? Like in living this missional marriage? I guess you guys have talked about these to some degree, but if there's any expansion on it, if not, I'll ask it in a different way, because there's a question in there I want to ask, but if there's more you want to add there.
I think the biggest thing is probably when you're married, and then especially if kids enter the picture, is your schedule. I mean, I just think you have to. I mean, we've had many seasons where we will have to plan out. Let's have 3 nights this month that we are inviting people over for dinner, or let's have this time that we are going and doing this thing together.
Yeah.
Because if you don't schedule it, busyness makes the decisions for you.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really big one. Is it requires some sitting down and talking out how you're going to give yourself, Brad said this, some margin to be missional.
Yeah.
Like, it can feel kind of mechanical at first, but the reality is that we've got a lot of things on our plates. So schedule, I think, is a big one.
It's interesting saying, I mean, just what you said even before, even I asked this question, I was thinking about this, but now that you say that again, like, I don't incorporate a lot asking the question, God, what do you want us to do? What do you, I mean, I didn't even say, what do you want me to do, but let alone us, what do you want us to do? It's like we're finding some wisdom point or some balance point, like you're saying, or, how can I get the most out of something or the best out of it? Or, what's that we were talking about this the other day, the cult of optimization.
Yes.
How can I get 1% more out of whatever I'm doing? Like stuff that's good. It's not bad to want to do that, but we forget in this process to go, hey, God, what do you want out of this? And I think we don't ask that question because if we get an answer, that's the one space we can't argue or debate, right? Once God says something, you go, oh, I actually have to do something about this, So anyway, Brad, I don't know, or Janet, if you want to
go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can unpack this a little as much as you want, but like when we shared, last October on marriage night, we talked about 3 challenges that we have to face if you want to be missional couples, and all begin with F: flexibility, finances, and family. Because ministry only begins when your plans get interrupted. Let's be honest, right? And so you got to learn how to open your home up without perfection. Have a 3 meals mindset, that you go, I can always plan these 3 meals if I need to last minute, being flexible with routines and schedules so that you don't think that schedule you're now is going to be what the plan for 20 years. I could go on, with finances, you could talk about that, the role of kids. So, but I could sermonize, but
yeah.
So really I would encourage people to think through, okay, where do you need to be more flexible? Where do we need to adjust our finances? Where might we need to simplify in order to make space for ministry? Financially simplify.
Yeah.
How are we separating our kids from ministry as if it's our ministry and then there's the kids, or is it our family's ministry? So thinking through all those challenges as opportunities, I think that's kind of the first steps towards having a missional marriage.
All right, I'm going to ask a question here that I'm really actually fascinated to hear how any of us. Actually, did you have something else that you wanted to add to that?
I was just going to add a little more, even on the kids' side. What I see, and I know we've struggled with, is when the kids get school age, there's such a temptation with club sports and all of their activities to, like, I think about when we were kids, I played rec soccer, or my friend went to dance lessons, and it was not this all-consuming. There was a season, and it might have been a couple nights a week, but now it's our whole life, and there's this pressure to feel like we need to have our kids specialize in a sport by the time they're 10, and it becomes all-consuming, and there's a sweet side of the coin where, yes, you can be really missional on a club soccer team, and you have something that organizes your family and you're all together and you're cheering them on, but it is also very consuming and leaves little room to do anything else. And that's been a huge tension for us. And that I see other families like, I'm just so busy. We're so busy. And you'll have a coach email you and say, don't make any plans this weekend because we got a tournament Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we had to make real decisions with that. And it was a good opportunity to talk through with our kids of their priorities too, and you could say, well, this might be better for you in one regard individually, but we want to think about the holistic health of our whole family.
That's right.
And they got to points in their teenage years where they would say, I don't want to do this because I know it's not good for our entire family. There's a better way to do this.
Yeah, the only things that will ever get in the way of you having a missional marriage are good things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's it.
Right.
You're never going to be tempted by this blatantly awful thing. So you can always justify it.
Right. Yeah.
But you got to go, is my biggest goal to train them in baseball so they can get a scholarship, or to train them in ministry so they can make an impact in the world? Right. What's your priority?
Deciding between good and best is usually the decision.
Totally.
Yeah.
And is
Somebody
there a
should
way
write a
for them
book
to
about
do
that.
this? Even is there a way for them to do this that isn't so all-consuming? Because there is such a tension of our kids have gifts and talents and abilities that you really do want to see flourish. And sometimes God has called them to go play college or even professional sports. But a way to do that is healthy for the whole family.
I like that you're bringing up the family piece, because I think sometimes people separate marriage from family. The truth is that my wife is my kid's mom, and this is just absolutely inseparable. And so if you don't train your kids for ministry, you won't have a missional marriage, because they'll always pull you apart.
Yeah.
And because I am not married apart from my also being a dad to my kids. And so I think that you can't separate those two when you get to that place.
So this is I'm not a huge fan of hypothetical questions, but I'm just going to ask a hypothetical question. So if you don't want to answer it, don't feel like you have to, but how would you view like your participation in God's mission? What would be different if you had never have been married to each other and you didn't have the kids that you have? How would that affect your participation in God's mission?
Go ahead.
I think for me, I think one of the real strengths that Brad brings to our marriage is focus and discipline and structure.
I sound fun, don't I?
But this is what God knows that I need. So I think I actually really appreciate that question, because I think what my tendency would be is to like do a little here and do a little there, and then I would be maybe I should move to Denver.
Yeah.
And I would just move to Denver because it sounded fun. And then
That's totally how I would be too.
yeah, 18 months later,
it'd
be like, should I go to San Diego?
Yeah,
I think
for
maybe
sure.
God's calling me to all the cool, pretty places.
Every July.
Every July. So I think that I would have been probably less intentional in all of the ways, because being intentional requires discipline and structure and organization and those things. And so I think I would have been a little bit all over the map. And so it's kind of like when you look at the impact, that's like, what is it? An inch deep rather than a mile long, a mile wide, or whatever. So I think that would have been me with a little focus. And I would have I think any sort of impact or fruitfulness would have been limited, because I probably would have ducked in and ducked out. When it got hard, I would have just said, well, God's probably calling me to do something else. Yeah. When he's like, no, we need to stay in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd be a joyless blog writer who would change the world with my angry rants that somehow my ideas will change the world, but I wouldn't actually know anybody.
Yeah.
Because I'd be way in my head. Carrie always reminds me of the people, behind whatever I'm trying to do, and welcome the outsider. I would just kind of pull in, be more recluse, and think I'm ministering with all my zeal.
Yeah. First time I ever realized the power of being a part of a marriage or a family that isn't just like the one I grew up in was we had helped start a church, maybe almost 20 years ago now. And they asked us, would you guys just start the first Bible study in the church? And it was being hosted by a couple. He was an engineer in Chandler or Queen Creek or something like that. They'll host it, you lead it, and it's basically, this is the Bible study that the people in the church will go to, right? So we had a mixture of people coming, like already church people, non-church people, and then just straight up friends or people that we would invite. So I went to his house to see, will this accommodate, and I actually wanted to meet him too. I'd never met him before. And he was pretty quiet, distinct, very serious, whatever. And the second time we came over, he said, well, why don't you just come over for dinner and bring your wife and your kids, and we'll just eat dinner together. That way it doesn't feel strange in our home the first time we all get together. So we were like, great. And he called me the day after we had dinner with our family. And he goes, the first time I met you, I thought, this is just some dude coming over to my house leading a Bible study. He was like, I wasn't very impressed by you. And he goes, he goes, then I met your wife and your kids, and I saw you together. And he this is what he actually said to me. He goes, who is this guy? And I thought, that is fascinating to me, that us together changed his whole entire perspective on, he was all of a sudden very open to us being, he would ask, we'll watch your kids for you. This is a very quiet, stoic, serious guy that just opened up just like that. And I would say probably teetering on his relationship with God, but open to it, And so I just recently read this maybe a month ago too, and it was a funny little theoretical, but it was like, if the FBI was given half of a picture of somebody and said, can you identify them? How would you be able to identify them, And the implication being, you can't identify a husband until you see his wife. You can't identify a wife until you see their husband, because it's a one type thing. You can only get the fullness of who they are by seeing the unity of that together. And so I don't know if you'd add anything, but Yeah, if you'd want to add something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably more like Brad. I would structure. So in college ministry, I would have stayed in my lane of I have done my college ministry and now it is time to go home and live my regular life, But I remember too, like when we got married, having the same girls over to our now apartment and then house. And they quickly would just sit down and want to talk to Ryan and ask him questions. And I thought, I can tell like he seems like a big brother or a dad figure to them, even in our mid-20s, where there was like a safety or protection that they felt with him, that a whole nother dimension that I could not bring as a single woman,
That's good.
All right. This has been an awesome conversation. Any closing thoughts that you guys would say? And particularly around, well, actually, any closing thoughts is fine, but I'd love to hear even, Carrie, I know you have, or maybe Jim wrote it, I don't remember, but have that missional plan that we even took, you guys took people through it to some degree at the marriage night. Okay. So just any closing reflections on that or anything?
Yeah. I would encourage people to go onto the Redemption Tempe website, and under the Get Connected, it's outreach.
Okay.
And the mission plan is on there. And I simplified it so that it is literally just one front and back.
Oh, perfect.
And so we did this at the marriage night.
Yeah.
We had all the couples sit down and talk through it. Talk through the abilities. What are some things that you're gifted at, that you're good at, that you like to do? Also, what are some aches? Like, I really have a heart for hospitality or reaching into serving the homeless in our community, whatever that is as a couple. And then some really realistic anchors. Like, well, I work on weekends. Okay, well, then that's an anchor that you need to consider. So that one page, I would encourage people to, spend an hour going through it so that you guys can come to a place of like, hey, let's enter in this way. Like it really forces you to have the conversation and to have an action point. Yeah. So that's on the website, and it's easy, it's self-explanatory to work through.
We'll make it easy too for everybody who's listening to this. Like, if you don't know Jose yet, he's our communications director. He's amazing. He's sitting with us here right now, but we'll post a link onto this podcast, so you don't have to go searching too far, because you don't want to stop, rewind. Right. Where'd she say to go again? Where was that again? It's link after link sometimes. Yep. So we'll link that into the podcast. Any other closing reflections from anybody else?
Oh, I love how she closed. I'll be quiet.
Okay.
I think the only other thing I would add when I think of like reflecting God in our marriage is focusing on conflict resolution. And I don't want to open up a whole nother thing, but I think that is a really big key in marriage and not easy to do. But the unity in us reflecting the relationship of God is really focusing on not letting those unresolved conflicts go, but finding whatever, if we need to get someone else involved, if we need help in this area, whatever it is, to resolve our conflicts, repair our fractures, mend our hurts, and go forward. I think that is safety and health in that covenant.
No, you're totally right. I think it's 2 Corinthians 5 that we have the ministry of reconciliation. If you want to have a missional marriage that is a ministry of reconciliation, that ought to motivate us to find reconciliation in our marriages rather than hide it, because we gotta have it all together. It's actually very motivating to go, let's admit our flaws so that we can reconcile better.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, as this would be, just given what all three of you just said, I think there is a pretty strong correlation between, hey, we as a couple, we go through, this is our missional plan. This is a vision, a mission that we're on. If that gets defined and agreed upon, your conflict resolution changes, because there's a reference point to your conflict to say, is this fitting into what we've said, where we're going, why we're doing it? If it isn't, do we need to reorient ourselves and go, this just isn't working, or maybe we need to aim differently, or, wherever you're at on the pendulum, we need to get back to the middle here for a second and just go, why are we doing this, or something like that? Because unresolved conflict probably does end up having the biggest effect on your side-by-side unity going forward together. If you have unresolved conflict, that has to be dealt with. And if we're going chicken or the egg, it's dealt with by saying, are we on the same page where we're going? You know, and it just kind of just keeps spinning in that same circle. So, well, this has been awesome conversation. Appreciate you guys. And we'll talk to you guys next time.